Good morning, welcome back to Near Post Flick On. So, PSG took on the mighty Tottenham Hotspur for the UEFA Super Cup. Of course, it meant if Tottenham had won it, that would have been two trophies in a matter of months, which Tottenham haven't done in a long while. So, of course, the Tottenham faithful, their fans, supporters, were really looking forward to this. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. And I'm sure some people have already called it Spurs being Spurs or Spursy, as the term goes. However, you've got to look at the positives and not the negatives. And I think since the Ange era, I think looking at what Frank has done so far over the summer, some of the purchases, it looks like Tottenham are headed in the right direction. But we'll touch on that in a moment. Looking at the game itself, Tottenham were very unfortunate. They were really unlucky. Tottenham were really unlucky. You know, they went ahead through Mickey van der Ven on the 39th minute, and then Christian Romero added another through a header on the 48th minute, and it looked like Tottenham were playing sailing. It looked like they were motioning and going in the right direction. However, PSG are the best team in Europe for a reason. They are the Champions League holders for a reason. They've won all the trophies that they've won last season for a reason. They didn't give up. They were relentless. You know, they didn't give up. They played right up until the final minute. And then they came back after Lee pulled one back in the 80th minute. And then Ramos, of course, getting all important equalizer in the 94th minute of play, which sent the game into penalties. And again, even during the penalties as well, Tottenham had a chance. Tottenham had a chance to win in the penalties, but it just didn't go. It didn't go right for Spurs. It didn't go right for Spurs. But for me, yes, PSG won it, but I don't think that they deserved that win. I thought Tottenham played absolutely brilliantly. I think after Thomas Frank made those changes, those substitutions, you could see that some of the players were fatigued as well. Some of the players were fatigued as well. So I think that kind of impacted the dynamic of the first 11 of the team. Basically, I think it impacted. For me, sometimes I always like to keep players on. You know, if they're doing a good job, they may be a little bit tired, but sometimes I don't like to tinker. If the team's up 2-0 and the shape is there, sometimes I like to just ride it through. I don't like making pointless substitutions. But anyway, PSG, you know, they did what they did. And having said that, it was actually their substitutes that made a difference in their case. Because when Lee and Ramos came on, they made a difference, you know. But PSG, as I say, they're champions for a reason. And they just kept on going and kept on going at Spurs. But I think Tottenham kind of proved, and we have to analyse that. Tottenham proved that they can actually mix with the best of them. And I think it's a great dress rehearsal for Tottenham going into this new season under Thomas Frank, because you can say whatever you want to say. The UEFA Super Cup is a recognised major trophy, and it would have been great for Spurs to have won it and then head into the new season with that type of accolade, if you like. But however, you've got to look at, as I say, you've got to look at some of the positives that we saw from Tottenham yesterday. I felt the formation was fantastic. I think they played with two wing backs with Van der Ven, Romero, and Danso at the back. I really like the shape. I really like the shape. Of course, Dominic Solanke yet to come back. He came on as a substitute, but I'm sure once he's fully fit, he will be leading the line. I'm not really a fan of Richarlison, to be honest with you, but however, I think the future does bode well for Spurs. I predicted that Tottenham will finish fifth this season, and based on yesterday's performance, they may creep into the Champions League position if the other top four don't, if they don't step up to the plate. There is an opportunity there for Tottenham to creep into the top four this season. But I think, yes, Tottenham played a lot better than I've ever seen them play in a while. I think there was great shape there. You can see plenty of commitment from the players. And I tell you who impressed me the most. Kudos. Again, when Spurs went into the market and made that purchase, I wasn't really sure as to why they'd gone for him when they had other options. But I tell you what, if he carries on the way he's playing, he will probably be one of the best signings this season in the Premier League. He, for me, was man of the match. I thought he played out of his skin yesterday. He was really impressive. In the first half, he did a lot of running. He's got a lot of engine on him, and he's got an eye for goal as well. So I thought Jed Spence looked good in left back. I think he's coming into his own now. And yeah, the squad as well. We've got, there's a good squad of players there for Tottenham. They've got a good squad of players there for Tottenham. And I think going into this season, I think, they're setting up shop right. So it's only a matter of time before some of the players come back. Of course, we've had the Madison injury, so hopefully he gets back for Spurs. Otherwise, they'll be looking to bring in a playmaker, and I would look at bringing in Eze. However, that's down to Thomas Frank and Daniel Levy, of course, to make that decision. But for me, there's a lot of positives from Spurs. They didn't capitulate. They didn't get destroyed. They didn't get battered or hammered or anything like that. They stuck with it. If the game had ended 10 minutes early, Tottenham would be celebrating today. I'm sure there would have been another parade down at White Hart Lane, but it wasn't meant to be. PSG are PSG for a reason. But as I say, it's a great dress rehearsal for Spurs, and I think they will definitely do well. Take on the positives. You know, if they can forget about the outcome of the match and just concentrate on the positives. And Tottenham look like a team reborn. And as I say, Christian Romero is a fine choice for a captain. He displays leadership qualities that maybe past or previous captains may not have had. I always like my captains to be centre backs. It just I don't know. There's just something about centre backs leading from the back. And he represents that for me, and I think that will make a lot of difference as well going into the season. But only time will tell. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.